This here is another viewer's broken gaming PC. It's a bit of a doozy. Apparently it fires up but doesn't post or send a signal out. Now, this could be because of a number of things. Maybe we have an issue with the graphics card, maybe there's a motherboard or CPU problem, heck, maybe the monitor or the display cable being used by the owner isn't working or playing nicely with the system. That's something that we wouldn't obviously be able to account for here. So we're gonna get to the bottom of it, or at least attempt to, and we're not gonna charge him a dime in the process. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Fix or Flop, a playlist where we attempt to fix broken gaming PCs like this one without charging anything at all. And that includes replacement hardware if it comes to it. I'm hoping that's not the case. Obviously, it's in my best interest to not continue to shell out hardware that costs increasingly more and more money, it seems these days, but it does often come with the territory. And I make my best efforts where possible to fill in those needs if they arise. I also want to mention that this owner, after meeting him personally, is not the most PC savvy, and that's totally fine. He made that very clear up front. So if you see something wonky with the way this is assembled, for example, this rear exhaust fan kind of flipped backwards, it's actually sort of like competing with airflow coming from the CPU, so we're gonna fix that for him. I mean, things like that can be very quickly addressed, might just stem from his lack of experience. And again, that's okay. Unfortunately, again, this rig is not sending a signal out. Before, it was just having issue apparently loading up certain games. The system would freeze right after opening Steam and clicking on a title to load up for the first time. After opening the rig to see if there were any severed connections or anything, the owner says that's when it started no posting. And another quick thing about this owner, because some of you seem to assume that these rigs are all planted, that hardware in here is thrown in intentionally, known defective so that they can get free stuff. The owner here tried to give me a 16 gig kit of DDR4 that was pulled, I think, from another system or that a friend gave him. This is actually a DDR5 based rig, so he knew we couldn't use it with this hardware. He didn't know that RAM prices had shot up as much as they had. In fact, he didn't even know what kind of kit of RAM he had or what the capacity was. He just offered it to me. Of course, I told him to keep it. I told him he could sell it on Facebook Marketplace or something and make decent money. Even DDR4 is going up in price today. So if he had no use for it, just sell it, pocket 60, 80, 100 bucks, whatever you can get for it, and call it a day. But that's the, I guess, sort of an indication of his lack of experience here. And again, that's totally fine. I don't know jack about biology, for example, right? So there are things that I know well and things that I don't. That's just how it goes. You can't expect everybody to know how to build a PC or how to maintain one, how to fix one. That's what we're here for, and I am pretty confident we'll be able to get this back up and running by the end of this video. I hope you will stay with me.
Are you sitting on a gaming PC without an activated copy of Windows? Forget $100+ retail keys, instead snag an OEM Windows 11 key for a fraction of the price to unlock the full potential of the OS. Oh, and don't worry, they'll still remove those pesky activation watermarks. Just click the links below to get started today, and be sure to use our special offer code SKGS for a sweet discount on a variety of options including Windows 11 Pro, Home, and more.
We're going to kick things off right away by jumping into the troubleshooting process. One of the most important steps in this procedure is to attempt to replicate the issue described at the onset. Now, there are very few situations where you don't want to do that, especially if you've been told that there are sparks or that the system smokes or something. You don't want to risk making that worse. So give it a once over, check all of your connections, maybe remove the power supply, isolate that. But by and large, if you just have a situation where you're not getting a signal to your monitor or the system is not powering on at all, it always helps to double check before you dive deeper, because we might have, again, some other issue outside of the system itself keeping it from performing properly. If, for example, the monitor is defective or the display cable is defective, that would mean that this rig should show a picture on our portable monitor here. I can hear an interesting little whirring sound coming from the... Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, I just flipped the power supply switch on at the back here, and I hear a little something. It doesn't sound bad, it's just I can tell that it's now on. Here we go, let's power on at the front. All right. I noticed that RGB flickered for a second. It was on and then it cut back off. Wonder if it's gonna turn back on. No? That's strange. Doesn't look like we're getting a picture out. And we are wired through the graphics card, which is what you want to do. Now, I think Ryzen 9000 series CPUs, which would be Zen 4, or is that Zen 5? One of the two. Those have IGPs, so in theory we could just run straight through the CPU. That could be a good way of removing the graphics card as a potential variable or cause for concern. Right now, at least through the card, we aren't getting a picture. Where do we go from here? I do think it's super strange that we saw the RGBs for the case fans and the case itself for a split second, and then they cut back off. They never turned back on. I wonder, yeah, even when I power it off, you could see them flicker for a second. Let's see if we can replicate that just once more. Yeah. I think we have something wrong with maybe the way this is wired. I don't know. That just seems a little sus. The two of the headers at least are occupied up top. This one is, well, it's a little angled, but I do think it's making contact. Just make sure it's not crossed backwards. Usually there's like an arrow or something, you can see there, indicating the orientation of the pins. I think 5 volt runs through that arrow. This is also, yeah, this is also an ARGB connector, and it was plugged in properly. All right, so at least no issues with RGB on this side. I know this is kind of a small thing to be worrying about right now, but it's just a symptom I noticed right away. And no, in the off chance you are wondering, disconnecting all of the RGB still does not result in a post. I've gone over all vital connections so far. The 8-pin supplemental power connector for the graphics card looks good. Our 24-pin is fully seated up and down, as well as our 8-pin EPS up top. So power-wise, at least on, again, this side of the case, we look good. Also, his RAM is fully seated. I don't see anything wrong with that, although we could still possibly have a defective DIMM or two. And back here, his power supply is non-modular, so that at least should be a non-issue. The power supply itself could still be bad, but cable connecting on this side of the equation is not really a factor. Everything else looks good. It's somewhat cable managed. It's pretty clean. What to isolate first? Since the PC does turn on, the graphics card lights up, all the fans spin, with the exception of the RGB flickering for a split second, I don't see a need to isolate the power supply immediately, although I'm sure I will probably end up paying the price for that a bit later. I have a hunch that the graphics card might be bad, so what we're gonna do is remove it from the equation, run our HDMI cable directly through the motherboard to bypass it. Out you come then, nice and easy. Quick visual inspection checks out. This is an ASRock Challenger edition of the 9060 XT, and it looks pretty darn clean. One area you wanna pay special attention to is right here along the bottom near the golden fingers. If this is like misslotted or misaligned when there's force put on it, you could break off some of these SMDs. Same goes for the back side, so it always helps to kind of just run over each of these. And then also connectors at the rear. So like if you have a defective HDMI or DisplayPort port, you could have a problem. If you see anything sticking out like a sore thumb, yeah, it's gonna probably need to be replaced. So to be clear, for my own selfish reasons, it would be nice for this to not work. If we still don't get a post, that means that this likely is not the culprit since it has been removed from the equation. We're gonna power it on here, we're gonna power it on up front. Let's see what happens. Remember, we still have our RGB disconnected, and I'm gonna keep things that way. So everything we remove or change, I'm going to hold in place until we find the true crux of the problem, and then we'll slowly iterate backwards. We'll add piece by piece, ensuring along the way that we still have a stable system. The rig still sounds the same. I will say the fans just keep spinning. They don't sound like they're ramping down at all, which is typically what happens when you have a post, unless you don't have like a set fan curve or anything. We still don't have picture. Honestly, slightly relieved. I'm gonna wait for a few more seconds, but it doesn't look like we're gonna get anywhere as is. Another quick thing we can do is isolate a DRAM issue. We're gonna swap out his 2 sticks for one of my known working DDR5 DIMMs. Most of us know by now just how expensive DDR5 has become. I'm gonna quickly visually inspect the slots. They all look good. We're gonna go with the first to populate here. That would be slot A2. Just gonna slot a single DIMM in and see what happens. What will we find here? Oh no. 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 I knew right away when the fans ramped down. I think I'd rather the graphics card be the culprit, not DRAM, not at this point, no. Some of you seem to think that stuff like this is planted in these rigs. It can't be a coincidence, right? That the price of DDR5 skyrocketing coincides perfectly with an increase in DDR5 issues in fix or flop. There's no way that that is random, right? What we're seeing on screen so far does look good. So Ryzen 7 9700X is installed, our 16 gig DIMM is detected, and our two NVMEs as well. I noticed two in the motherboard. I'm not sure if they're actually NVMEs. They are M.2 drives. Those are both detected as well. What I'm gonna do from here is try to figure out which of his DIMMs is defective. Again, hopefully not both. Firstly, what exactly are we working with here? So this is a 5600 mega transfer stick. It looks like it's a part of an 8 DIMM kit. Each DIMM is 16 gigs, so that's what 16 times 8? I'm not sure. 128 gigs, does that sound right? That is huge. That would be just stupid money in 2026. What a lot of pre-built vendors will do is buy these big kits, what they used to do at least. Sometimes they can get them at discounts and then they'll just part them out. They'll take 2 from the kit of 8 or more, and then they'll use those in one system. They'll take another 2, throw it into another system, and that's how they kind of move inventory at a bit of a discount. Nowadays, I'm not sure that's happening, but this clearly came from a much larger kit at some point. One thing I do like about this memory in particular is that it doesn't look like we have a lot of SMDs around the golden fingers. So typically when you align these incorrectly and you apply a lot of force, you'll find that these little capacitors and resistors, not many on that side, but these tend to break off. You can see it's pretty bare all the way around, which alleviates some of that concern, but unfortunately, I don't see a smoking gun either. So there are a few of those SMDs there. If we hold these sideways, we can kind of compare and contrast them. Nothing so far that I can see is missing on either DIMM. And we could, however, still be dealing in the off chance with an issue that's semi-related to DDR5, but not actually the result of a dead DIMM. That being more than likely either a physical defect with one of the slots, or maybe all of them, or a dead memory channel, which would be CPU related in a lot of cases. There's a controller that communicates with memory in the CPU itself, in the die. And if that goes bad, then that could prevent maybe one of the channels from working properly. Now, we've only tried our working DIMM in channel A, slot number 2. I'm gonna try that same DIMM in the remaining slots, and if it turns out that it works fine in all of them, then yeah, I mean, there goes any hope of this not being the problem. We're gonna slide this one over to slot A1. So again, this is still the same channel, just a different slot. It wasn't even involved originally with the system not working, but we're gonna roll them all out. Wait a minute, is it not posting again? We just went from A2 to A1. We're in the same channel. Stem is fully seated. Why would it not work now? That is super weird. All right, let's go back to A2 just for a sanity check. See if we get that post. We do. We do get a post. You guys see that, right? So do we actually have a communication issue with either the motherboard or the CPU? That is suspicious. Right, so we're on the outermost slot now. This would be B2, still no post. The only slot where we get a post with a single known working DIMM is A2. It is possible the board just refuses to post when the ideal first slot is not populated. In most boards, that is A2. I've not seen that very often. This is a newer board, things might have changed. One thing we can do for sure though is test the owner's DIMMs in a known working system to rule out that possibility. I suppose though that wouldn't explain why both of his DIMMs don't work in slots A2 and B2. Those were the correct slots that those DIMMs were in to begin with. Why would we not get a post with both there? We could also just try each of his DIMMs in A2 to see if we get a post with both or either in that ideal slot. If we do, then again, that could also be a way of ruling out a defective DIMM or two. Oh, okay, here we go. So one of his DIMMs, slot A2, we've got a post. That's actually a great start. Let's try DIMM number 2. If you consider yourself to be a person of faith, pray for me. Pray for my wallet. Huzzah! We dodged a massive bullet. So we can get a system to fire up with both DIMMs. That's already a fantastic revelation because I was just getting ready to write them off. Oh boy. We're already so up and down emotionally in this one. So then why would we not get a post with a DIMM in any other slot. It's just really weird. Even if two known working DIMMs completely independent of the owner's system are installed, we still get no post. Anytime any DIMM is connected to any slot other than A2, it acts up. It doesn't want to send a picture out. I find that very interesting. Whoa, wait a minute. I went back to this config because I just wanted to rule out once and for all that we didn't have a dead channel. Odd that A1 wouldn't work, but A2 would if that was the case. But we actually have a post now. So what the heck? Aha, I know what it is now. This is my own fault. I completely forgot. We're working with the latest Zen platform here. This is again a Ryzen 7 9700X. That means that in a lot of cases, it's gonna take an exceptionally long time for a rig to post with a new kit of RAM installed. Memory training takes quite a while with later Ryzen platforms, and I just wasn't being patient enough. The system does actually post with both of the owner's original DIMMs in slots A1 and A2. But the moment any DIMM touches the B channel, we don't get a post. That points, in my opinion, to a defective memory channel, which would more than likely be the responsibility of the CPU. Another good thing, as it stands, we can navigate through the BIOS completely unhindered. I don't see any issue with the way this is behaving. It seems stable. Temperatures also look pretty good for this being a slimmer tower cooler. 32C on the motherboard, 39, 40-ish C at the CPU. You can see both DIMMs detected as long as they are in, again, channel A. Things seem to be fine. Expo is not enabled, but we'll cross that bridge at a later date. Our fans are detected as well. What I want to pay special attention to, though, is this BIOS version. In the off chance we'd have some sort of like software issue preventing us from fully utilizing channel B's potential. It's interesting, this date is way off, 2022. I don't even think this board came out in 2020. I think it came out way later than 2022. This is a very recent chipset. And then the time 114. We'll check the CMOS battery voltage just to be on the safe side. I can't imagine that would be the issue why channel B would be giving us problems. BIOS version, however, is 3222. I'm going to quickly reference the support page online for this motherboard to make sure that we aren't super out of date. And that apparently came out in, wow, way down here. So that was March 7th, 2025. So it's only about a year old, but you can see since then we've had several revisions for this board. Again, it's relatively new, so it's going to continue receiving updates, I imagine, for several more months. The most recent one is actually a beta version, but it does say that it addresses additional stability margins, let's say for high-frequency DDR5 training. That sounds important. Potential boot failures and stability issues observed on certain Ryzen 9000 series configurations as well. So the fact that it addresses this, I mean, again, I don't know if this has anything to do with what we're seeing, but in my view, it is worth a shot. I think this would be a great chance to update the BIOS anyway to see if it fixes anything else. I'm gonna swing up to the ASUS Easy Flash utility, down to my thumb drive where the .cap file exists. That's this one right here. We're gonna click enter, and then it's going to read, confirm things look good. Is it reading? Yep, okay. And yes, I really want to update. Here we go. And while this happens, please, please, please do not touch anything. Don't do this during a thunderstorm. Use a UPS if you have one. I really shouldn't even be touching this monitor right now. I always tend to be on the cautious side of BIOS updates, because if this goes wrong and you don't have like a backup BIOS chip or something along those lines, you're gonna have to do some pretty unique flashing in order to get a motherboard to be unbricked, because if with a corrupt BIOS, like there's no way it's gonna be able to communicate with the hardware in your system and give you a post. We'd be back to square one. You can see it's updating just fine. It actually reset itself right when we clicked enter, and that is by design in a lot of cases. Don't let that freak you out. Don't touch anything until you are certain that this has fully installed. If you load back into your BIOS home screen, that's usually a good indication that things have worked out. And you can also verify up top that the BIOS is in fact updated. Unfortunately, it doesn't look as though our BIOS update has solved the no post issue. Anytime a DIMM is installed into slots B1 or B2, or both obviously, we don't get a picture out. And at this point, I'm leaning more toward the CPU being to blame. The problem is to get to the CPU, we have to pull the cooler off. Might as well take the whole platform out. Maybe we end up doing a motherboard swap instead. It really depends on whether this is a motherboard issue, maybe a slot issue, or something wrong with the traces between the CPU socket and those DIMM slots, or if again, there's an issue with the memory controller on the CPU itself, which would be a bit odd because This is a relatively new CPU. And of course, I waited several minutes with the DIMMs in this config for a post, just in case the memory training was taking an exceptionally long time. It shouldn't take any more than about 2 to 3 minutes. Any longer than that, and you're probably not gonna get anywhere, as is the case here. I carefully slide the main board out. This, of course, is with the CPU cooler, DRAM, and storage still attached. I don't wanna snag anything. It's a bit tricky with a rear fan installed in some of these cases. And there we have it. Now we can just remove this CPU cooler. You know, there is a small chance that maybe we have an issue with the socket. Remember, this is LGA this time around with AMD. Also, yeah, this is bugging the heck out of me. Gonna go ahead and remove this plastic peel. Should have been taken care of at the start. Hello, good looking. What do we have going on under here? Ooh. Ooh. What in the world? We have several pins where they shouldn't be. Are you serious? Is this really why we aren't getting a second memory channel to work? That would be crazy. I gotta be honest, I only said what I said earlier sort of as a joke. I don't think I've ever actually seen socket damage like this lead to just sort of like a corrupt memory channel. I mean, the fact that we got the system to post and appear stable with DIMMs only in channel A, given the damage that we're seeing here, I mean, that is pretty impressive. Like, what are the odds that these pins in particular only NICs support for channel B? I mean, that's the only apparent issue that we've seen, and of course that keeps the system from posting. Time to whip out my trusty sewing needle then. I did not expect things to go the direction that they did here, but I am fairly confident that if we can bend these pins back, we'll have a working system again. I'm not sure what caused this. Again, the owner didn't tell me that he messed with the CPU or the DRAM or anything, and I pressed pretty hard. I wanted to let him know up front, hey, it's gonna seem like I'm interrogating you. It's not because I'm trying to catch you like a gotcha moment. It's just because any information you can give me will help me quickly pinpoint the problem, more or less. If it's something that you messed with yourself, you caused damage, just tell me. Whether you tell me or not, I'm probably gonna find it. And if I find it and you didn't tell me, then, you know, you're gonna be watching this video in playback thinking, oh, I should have just told him because it's not that big a deal, right? I'm not out here to embarrass anybody. I just want these systems to work again. And if you tell me what you did wrong up front, it helps me fix your system faster and get it back into your hands in working order quickly. So this sewing needle is my tool of choice to bend pins back. I know some folks like using like mechanical pencils with the, the lead taken out. I've seen all kinds of things used. I'm comfortable with this. I don't want you to be afraid to do something similar if you trust that your hand's not gonna be too shaky, right? And maybe let's say you have like an accompanying microscope or something. Doesn't have to be a high-end one. Mine's very low budget, like 60 or 70 bucks. I think it's even linked in the description if you're interested. That'll kind of give you an idea of where these pins need to be bent back in order to line up with the rest in each row. So I'm gonna kick things off with these few up top. Now looking through my microscope, you can see that some of these pins are bent severely, and that even might be an understatement. It doesn't just happen like this. Like, you don't just have a board with bent pins like this for no reason. Typically, there's some sort of abuse, some sort of neglect, something falls into the socket, and that's how you get bent pins like these. The fact that these are sort of scattered about is a bit strange, but again, beyond that, I really can't explain this. I'm kind of at a loss for what I'm seeing here. Some of these aren't bent too bad. You just give them a little push in one direction or another, and they line up cleanly, but there were two near the top, the two most bent, and they were bent upwards, that I just couldn't get back without really shoving them. And unfortunately, that meant that both of them broke off. Now, this is actually the first time I've ever broken off any pin in any socket before that I can recall. I'm gonna try to see if the system will post as is, especially with both channels A and B on the memory side functioning. It's kind of a sort of a long shot. I think this is gonna be a slam dunk motherboard swap no matter what, now that those pins have broken off, and these are just way too fine to put back into the socket. But for curiosity's sake, let's see what happens. Will we get a picture out? I don't have a fan on the CPU cooler right now. I actually don't even have thermal paste on the CPU. It's because the system's not gonna be on that long. But if we get a picture out with two missing pins in a socket, I will be pretty darn impressed. I'm already impressed that we got a post with just DIMMs in channel A, given the extent of the damage that we initially saw. So I suppose this wouldn't be too shocking if we got something on screen, but It's looking like it's not gonna happen on account of the fact that I broke 2 pins in the process of attempting to bend them back. And to be fair, because I've done this many, many times, I would say I'm fairly experienced in the socket bending process. This would have happened with almost anyone. You could maybe heat it up a little bit, try to get the metal to be a bit more malleable, but these were bent so far back. And these LGA pins, especially in these AM5 boards, they are so dang flimsy. And they're actually hollow in the center as well, so they're almost shaped like forks. And because of that, yeah, their structural integrity just kind of goes out the window the moment they're bent in the wrong direction. With that then, let's kill power. Yeah, we're just, we got no joy, and that means we're gonna have to transplant everything in here into our replacement board, which is one that I purchased out of pocket a while back. It's just sitting in the closet collecting dust. I'd rather it go to good use here. So we're gonna pull DDR5 actually. We're gonna pull out the 2 M.2s, the CPU and the cooler, of course, any other mounting gear we might need for this cooler, although it's fairly straightforward. And hopefully have them up and running after that motherboard swap. Trading one ASUS board for another. This here is an ROG Strix B650A gaming Wi-Fi. Now this is a slightly better board on paper, I believe, than what he's coming from. So that's nice, minor upgrade. That's always pretty cool. And this one I've used before. It's just sat again in a box for a few months since, but I know this socket's in good shape and this should give us a positive result. Also maintains the same sort of like silver and black color scheme, so it's not gonna be like a stark difference in terms of aesthetics when it's all said and done. Let's just aim for a quick sanity check here before throwing everything back into the case, because I don't wanna waste my time or yours. I forgot to connect the power cables. What am I doing? Just like completely forgot. Super important step here. Obviously, we need power. 8-pin EPS is right there. Okay, now we're good. Power on here. And then we need to jump the power pins on this board, which are in roughly the same place. All right, there we go. Oh, we have debug LEDs as well. That would be helpful. Hopefully we have nothing else wrong with this system. We should get a post if the only issue here is the board, and it did appear to be, because we found that physical damage. I'm gonna give it maybe 60 to 90 seconds for a boot up. Again, it's gonna have to train memory. It's a totally different motherboard, so it's seeing these components for the first time. I'm hoping we get something. Picture out, come on.
12 o'clock midnight.
Does this motherboard support 9000 series processors natively? I'm actually not sure. I don't remember when I got this board. How long it's been sitting in my closet. I know it's been a few months at least. Yeah, so a few context clues. Firstly, there on the back of the box it says compatible with Ryzen 7000 series desktop processors. That means natively this board wouldn't support the chip in here. Again, a 9000 series chip. This also means I need to swap in a compatible CPU for the interim. Boy, oh boy, this is becoming very laborious. Is that the right word, laborious? It's a lot of labor. I'm spending a lot of time on this rig and I did not expect it. All right, so this 7700 should fire up just fine. Aha, sure enough, BIOS version 1811. This came out long before Ryzen 9000 series CPUs did, so of course, this isn't natively going to support those chips. We're gonna get a quick BIOS flash take care of here. That's 2 in one fix or flop video. I think that's a record. And cross our fingers again. And would you look at that? After a successful BIOS update, you can see it's confirmed here on screen. I swapped in his 9700X once more, and we now have a post. This is great news. This means his CPU is fine, at least so far. I don't see anything that would prevent the rig from posting here on out, apart from possibly this graphics card, which has been sitting sort of ominously on the side of the desk for a good while at this point. We've been troubleshooting all day. I know it doesn't seem like that with the way that we cut things here in the videos, but I'm gonna take a much needed break and we're gonna try to wrap this up first thing in the AM tomorrow.
Day 2.
I do believe we are finally on the home stretch. So with the motherboard swap and everything else original to his build reconnected, save the graphics card, which we'll check in a second, I think it's now time to get this platform back into the case. However, there's one thing I want to do beforehand. It's usually a little easier to do without the motherboard installed. We're going to swap this rear exhaust fan. It's actually not even set to exhaust currently. It's intaking air, and when it does that, it competes with dominating airflow with the CPU cooler, which is trying to exhaust air out the back. So if this is trying to push air in one direction, and then the exhaust fan is actually not exhausting, it's intaking air, then you're not really getting an effective removal of heat from the system, and that could actually increase increase temperatures, create a little bit more noise and stuff. So we're gonna streamline all that and swap this rear fan around, then we'll throw in the platform. One other thing I wanna be mindful of is the RGB. I'm fairly confident at this point, given the socket damage we saw with the old board and the fact that all of the RGB was run through the motherboard, that was the cause of the lights not staying on. I'm just gonna quickly glance over a lot of the wiring for this. There are several fans, and again, we had 3 different independent ARGB connections to the old board. I'm gonna try to unify a lot of that. It just makes it easier in the long haul to sort of manage everything, get your colors synced up, etc. Now just tackling a few additional connections, front I/O and the like. I was able to consolidate down to 2 ARGB headers in total for the whole system, so all of the case fans through 1, and unfortunately the CPU ARGB, the cooler here, doesn't have like a splitter, so it has to run independently, but this should still keep things a bit cleaner for him. We've got, most of our major stuff already connected. Now it's time for the 24-pin, 8-pin EPS. We'll get our graphics card installed and cross our fingers that still works. Again, I'm pretty confident that this is gonna work. I know I'm kind of like fear-mongering at this point, but you just never really know for sure until you get these installed and all back into a working system. So let's try for a post through this. We'll make sure we connect our display cable to the card this time so that we get picture out through it and hope for the best. Also, don't want to forget our supplemental 8-pin. Here we go then. This is for all the marbles. So I have a portable monitor again, reconnected. We're gonna try for not only a post, but also loading into Windows. I do believe we have a Windows operating system on one of these two M.2s. And so if we can get through the initial splash screens, I think we'll be able to see Windows, and that will be mission accomplished in my book. You can see the RGB now works. That's a great sign, because the old board, again, I think that's fairly conclusive now, right? That the old board was keeping the RGB from functioning properly. There's our post. That was super fast. Let's get through TPM here and see if we can load into Windows proper this time. I think we need to press F1. Now we did see at one point a Windows partition on one of these drives, so that's what we're gonna try to load into. I think I'm just gonna click Escape. Let's see what happens here. Gonna keep the cameras rolling. This should now load into Windows. That's my hope. Looking for yes, that's Windows. It's just one solid line, so that's Windows 11. This is a great sign. Sometimes in the BIOS you have to reconfigure like your boot orders and things, but it looks like we only have Windows on one drive, which keeps things straightforward. And it didn't really have to do much in the way of like driver reconfigs either, because these boards they're not apples to apples, but they're pretty darn close. Again, from the same vendor. I think this is just like maybe 1 or 2 notches above what he started with, so we shouldn't have much in the way of driver conflicts. And there we go. We load straight into Windows, which is exactly what I want for the owner as well. So when he takes this home, he doesn't have to configure anything in the BIOS. We'll go through and enable like DOCP. We'll make sure that his RAM's running at an optimal frequency, and then triple check his boot order. That should be it. He'll power on at his house and load right into Windows. It doesn't really get any better than that. The RGB also looks very nice. It all appears to be synced again, because most of it's running directly through the motherboard. I think all of it is technically, including the DRAM, of course, and the graphics card, which has a hint of it there on the bottom. The color scheme actually looks really cool. I mean, I know it's just rainbow puke right now, but the fact that it's all synced up for the first time, I think is going to be very exciting for the owner to see. And it's all really because of that board swap. I mean, the previous socket was just so messed up, so beat up in so many ways. I actually give it credit for even posting with certain RAM configs. I'm very surprised it managed to do that. But after breaking those 2 pins off near the top, it was sort of inevitable. It needed to be replaced. So we have a much more stable system now, thanks to that small upgrade, still on the B650 chipset, but all around a very clean looking rig. Around back though, maybe not so much yet. I didn't want to clean much up until I was certain the rig posted and loaded into Windows repeatedly. Now that it does, we're just going to take 4 zip ties and make a ton of difference back here. So my goal is not necessarily to make this like easier to work on in the future. Like if you have to remove cables and things, you're going to be cutting these zip ties regardless. But what I'm going to aim for is using these zip ties in such a way to keep as little of the cabling back here exposed from the left side. So we have a lot of openings. We don't have rubber grommets in this chassis. What I'm going to try to do is leverage these zip ties to keep things clean, to keep things concealed, and yeah, just help things look a bit prettier. I mean, we could just shove the right panel on as is, but that's not the way it arrived. I certainly don't want to send this rig back to its owner in this state. So, a couple zip ties here along this larger chunk of cable runs, and then we'll take care of a bit of this mess up top as well. Let's do the panel test to see how easy this slides on. I think it's totally toolless. Oh yeah, that's like effortless. Look at this, one finger, boom, piece of cake. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And from the left side, I think this thing is honestly a beauty. There's a bit of empty space near the front. I think a smaller chassis, like front to back, would really suit this thing well because the card is not very long. But that said, airflow is gonna be great in this one. I think, again, aesthetically, with the RGB the way that it is, just like the generic rainbow scheme, it looks really nice with these silver accents in both the board and, of course, the CPU cooler. And we don't see many extra cables hanging around. You can see behind the openings, especially next to the motherboard, none of those cables are exposed, which is why the job we did around the right side is working. Now, I won't lie, I am still a bit confused as to how all of this came about. The owner told me that he moved his rig. I guess he was in the process of like physically moving locations where he was living, and after that time, the rig would not post any longer. So, you know, okay, maybe it got knocked around a bit. I don't see any signs of it being like abused, like at least externally, unless the case was swapped. But the fact that the socket looked the way it did, I mean, that to me looks like tampering. That looks like somebody not knowing really what they're doing, and the owner swears he didn't touch any of it. He doesn't even know where to start. He wouldn't even know probably how to remove the CPU cooler. I mean, he's not very confident at all when it comes to this stuff, which again is totally fine. I'm not judging him for it. I'm just speaking matter-of-factly, what he told me. Could he be lying? Sure. Could every potential, owner could be lying in this series. I don't really care. One way or the other, my job is just to fix it. Like if he did it, on accident and just didn't want to own up to it, I'm still here to fix it. I'm not here to judge. I just want the rig back up and running again. And that's what we managed to do here. Unfortunately, we couldn't save the original board. The tooling needed to fully reseat and get proper contact with pins in an LGA socket. It doesn't exist in this office. And it would probably be a trip to, I don't know, Taiwan or something. My good friend Marco. Marco, you're watching. I know you are, buddy. Marco knows a few places over there that can handle socket repairs like that. But I don't have the tooling here. For me, it's just much quicker, just more cost effective to swap the board out, and that's what we did. The rig works. At the end of the day, that's all I really care about. There were definitely a few moments where I was sort of doom and glooming. At one point we thought, right, the DDR5 had kicked the can, and that's not great news in this market. So it just, I think, is a testament to the importance of being thorough with troubleshooting. There are times where I feel like stopping because I've been testing for so long, and I find what I think is my eureka moment. Oh, that's gotta be it. I figured it out. But that actually is still only a symptom of something else. We could have stopped at any point throughout this process and maybe concluded that one of his sticks of RAM was bad, or that maybe he had a dead CPU memory channel, which we've seen a few times here, especially with Ryzen CPUs. But it didn't end up being either of those. We actually removed the CPU from the socket, inspected said socket, and realized that several pins were bent. I think that was the crux of all of our issues. And so, again, it speaks to the importance of being thorough. Continue testing every known variable until you are sure that you cannot go any further. A board swap in this case fixed our issues. The system now repeatedly boots up and loads into Windows. Mission accomplished. Thank you so much for watching this one. If you or someone you know has a broken PC and you'd like a chance to have it fixed for free in this playlist, just like this build here, be sure to submit a form linked in this video's description. Big shout out to everyone who clicks these videos, even if you're not watching, even if you're using an ad blocker, I do not care. Your clicks are super important. It keeps videos like these churning. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.